Alright, so in the last 36 hours or so, we've had a ton of PlayStation news recently come out. Most notably was the Horizon Remaster rumor, also a multiplayer Horizon game, and a leaked document showcasing a bunch of upcoming projects by SIE. So there's a lot of confusion and talk about what all this means, and let's really dive into all this stuff and discuss what's going on here. So, as always, we'll go in a timeline of how this played out. So this was initially reported by Multiplayer First that a Horizon Zero Dawn remake and remaster, or remake remaster kind of thing, was on the way. It wasn't exactly clarified what it was going to be, but also a Horizon multiplayer game as well. VGC then corroborated this claim with their own sources, describing the updated game will have visuals that bring it more in line with Forbidden West, so there's new character models, updated lighting and animations, and this new version of Zero Dawn will also add accessibility options, performance settings, and the quality of life updates that Forbidden West got. Gematsu also put out a report claiming that they were given a document that featured both announced and unannounced projects from SIE, and the Horizon Zero Dawn remaster and multiplayer spin-off were on that list. It didn't take long, but a few hours later, that list was eventually revealed. It seems that in mere hours, a lot of people were given access to this list, so it seems like it was only a matter of time until the whole thing dropped, more or less. Which, looking at it, it doesn't reveal too much, but we'll talk about that later. First, though, let's break down the Horizon situation, since the immediate reaction to it has been largely negative. And mind you, this is all unconfirmed, but there's always been this gray area for some people on what constitutes a remake versus a remaster, and also the kind of resources each of those demand. And, well, if we do look at that leaked document for a second, if it is genuine, it's labeled as a remaster, and that's, I think, the first thing to really understand immediately, because obviously the first report came out and it was labeled a remake/remaster because it wasn't necessarily understood from what is a rumor right now of what the game is going to be. But, I mean... Call me crazy, but it's a 2017 game. It's obviously a very recent PlayStation 4 title that looks very nice already on PS4, and if you play it on PS5, it has a patch to unlock the frame rate, so you're getting, full 4K, well, checkerboard rendering 4K, full 60 FPS experience. It plays great, looks good on PS5. So naturally, the question that many people are posing immediately is, why? Why would this be the case? But that's the problem with, a leak like this coming out and the way it's being phrased or described, and certainly on the back of The Last of Us Part 1 situation, which is more than likely very different from what we're hearing about here. I think what we should maybe understand right away is that it is a 2017 game. This cannot be a remake. It's not going to be a remake because it is too recent. This is very likely in the same veins of, let's say, the Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection or Spider-Man Remastered, which those games kind of came and went without much of a massive problem because people recognized that it was very much kind of a it's their sort of thing. You don't have to buy it, obviously, and they even had upgrade programs if you originally bought the games prior, or, well, in the case of Spider-Man Remastered. And I'm still shocked that they have not unbundled that game from Miles Morales, but, it was something where Sony didn't come out and make it a big deal, obviously. It was just kind of one of those things where it's like, Uncharted's back, it looks great, 4K 60 on PlayStation 5, also a PC version. Hey, here's Spider-Man Remastered. The big controversy there was Peter's new face, but otherwise it's a massive quality of life jump. Pretty standard, cross-generation sort of thing, right, where the game came late life cycle on PS4, so it was already expected before PS5 even came out that a lot of those late life cycle PS4 games were going to get PS5 versions. And it's also kind of in the same veins of a director's cut for Ghost of Tsushima or Death Stranding, although those two things had new content with it, but I think you get my point in that. We're seeing a lot of games come from PS4 over to PS5, and it's not a Last of Us Part 1 remake deal, where whether you like it or not, The Last of Us Part 1 is a genuine ground-up remake that certainly took more resources than, say, these other standard port situations look like. And at least in the context of Horizon, where if we look at what Forbidden West did, that's largely what we're going to get, I would figure. So, Zero Dawn obviously looks great, but you can insert Forbidden West character models, maybe add those more natural sort of movement animations when you're talking with an NPC or something, increase foliage, do the hero lighting. I mean, we're talking about very superficial things that, sure, they don't need to be there, but I cannot see this game not being a sort of like a $50 retail kind of game if you don't have it, if you've got no way of, you know, upgrading from something previously, then $50 retail, kind of like Uncharted. Or if you do have a game that if you have a copy you bought previously on PSN or via disc, $10 fee. We know that's how Sony's approached this. It's a $10 fee normally. And just as a jumping off point, I think the other sort of major problem or a potential controversy could be that they won't honor upgrades for the Play at Home version of Horizon. If you remember during the Play at Home promotion, where Sony gave away like 20-something PS4 games, and Horizon was a major headlining game that they handed out to a lot of PSN users for free. I can see them not honoring a upgrade path for anybody that claimed it that way. So I'm sure we'll see that controversy when it comes up, but the point is I can't see it not being something like that. Or perhaps, you know, whatever this multiplayer Horizon game is going to be, it could be bundled in with that. Maybe they re-release Forbidden West with a, kind of like a complete edition, because we also saw recently that the actor Lance Reddick posted on Twitter that they were doing mocap again for Forbidden West. They even hashtagged it as Forbidden West. So very likely that, like the Frozen Wilds, we're getting more Horizon content. So maybe it's something like that, like a Miles Morales Ultimate Edition kind of thing. Just, you know, but I understand the image problem Sony now has with what has been largely normal things. Again, a lot of PS4 ports over to PS5, but after the Part 1 remake, you know, now the cynicism is really setting in, which has become a big issue for Sony right now when it just comes to how they're being perceived, despite these being relatively normal things, especially for something like this where I can't see it being... Sony would not greenlight this if it was a resource hog, right? In fact, it seems like Guerrilla is very busy with new Forbidden West content, a PC port, although we'll talk about that in the leaked document section, and then this rumored multiplayer project, which we've caught wind of a while ago. We always knew they had a multiplayer game in the works. It was more a matter of what, you know, if they're going to return to an old IP, do something new, or expand with Horizon. And it does seem like they're really doubling down on the Horizon IP, which that alone is perhaps the most revealing information in here, even though we already had some inkling that they were going to be doing a Horizon multiplayer game, which we talked about a few months ago or sometime earlier this year. And also Dusk Golem mentioned on Reset Era. He's been very prevalent lately, and he's been the source of a lot of leaks recently. So he mentioned back in September that there was one more PS4 era game getting the PS5 facelift, and then he confirmed this was that game. So we might not even really see more of them, since there's not really a whole lot left anyway. But Bloodborne, yes, would be great. Many classic games would be great to be brought over, but this is at least what Sony's doing for the time being, where it's likely very affordable to move Horizon Zero Dawn over, given all the work that was recently done on Forbidden West. Now, as for the leaked document with a bunch of games, first and foremost, it does appear to be quite old, or at least by a year or so, which, you know, if it is genuine, that explains a lot of what's on there. So it does show all the Horizon-related announcements. It also confirms, again, along with Lance Reddick, that there is Horizon DLC on the way, and a planned PC port for Forbidden West, with a studio to be determined later, so Guerrilla might not handle that one in-house. There's also Firesprite. We can see a game codenamed Heartbreak, survival horror for PS5 and PC, no multiplayer. We did know Firesprite had a horror game already in the works based on job listings. Sumo has Sackboy's PC version listed with an open world game codenamed Carbon. Not sure what's going on with that one, or if it's still even a thing after Sumo was acquired by Tencent, but that's on there. Lucid Games has Destruction All-Stars, but also a game codenamed Red Star, with vehicle combat as the genre. Considering the age of this list, this might be the Twisted Metal project that has since been rumored to be handed over to Firesprite. We also see Returnal PC on there, and also Koei Tecmo's Rise of the Ronin, and we also have Kojima Productions with the codename Ocean. This is probably our Death Stranding 2. We've had some news recently come out from 9to5 Google about how Kojima pitched a game to Stadia that Phil Harrison turned down. Allegedly, that was a Death Stranding follow-up, which obviously Sony owns the IP, so that wasn't going to happen, so not sure if that's the writer simply misinterpreting, but we literally had Norman Reedus reveal this game twice to us, basically, so we don't exactly need more leaks on this one. It's very likely coming. Next, we see the Ballistic Moon project, codenamed Bates. That was also a survival horror game that was recently discovered by the Reset Era user Tamori. We went over that one on during LTPS like 1 or 2 months ago. That was very recent. And then London Studio, codenamed Camden on PS5 and PC, a live service title, which we also knew about that already. All we have here is a code name. And as for the entire nature of the list, it seems this was based on the assignments that these engineers had as listed on the far right of the document, so it's not just some random assortment that's conveniently omitting other studios. That's likely why we're only seeing a certain amount of studios, and again, it's quite old at this point, but that's essentially what happened recently. Now, to be honest, there's not really much in that list that's revealing at all. You know what I mean? Like, we've already followed a lot of the stuff just based on job listings alone for the projects that aren't confirmed just yet. So outside of the open world sumo game and, well, the Horizon Remaster, I suspect that's why that's the one thing in here that was cherry picked out. If the list is genuine, that would be the one thing that you'd want to run with as a story to put out there, since it would be seen as surprising, right? So that might explain why this played out the way that it did. And that also shows how, you know, sometimes leaks can be more damaging than they otherwise need to be. You know, oftentimes, based on the nature of the leak, it's usually not a huge deal, but sometimes it can play out in a really, you know, ugly way where there's a lot of backlash that might not have really warranted it this time around. I just can't see this being some kind of ground up $70 remake. It's clearly not going to be that. So it's, you know, if Sony just kind of did a trailer, a few PS blog posts, if it's, you know, a small fee to upgrade, which you obviously don't have to do, right? But it doesn't help that that's kind of the cynicism surrounding Sony nowadays. They have a pretty big image problem. It seems like they cannot catch a break. This week alone has had more stuff happen that doesn't look good for them, right? So week after week, despite them having a successful console, and they've put out, you know, fantastic software thus far, it's such a weird situation that Sony's found themselves in because, you know, I talked about this in the, you know, is arrogant Sony back video. It's like the comparisons to PS3 we're not even in that same ballpark because PS3 was bad. It was genuinely a bad product at first. That's just not the case with Sony and PS5 right now. That doesn't shield them from criticism, but I think a lot of it tends to be overblown. This might be another situation if Horizon is very much kind of just a standard PS4 to 5 port. But we'll see how they do intend to eventually announce it and roll it out. But if I had to guess, I would say it's going to be more of a Uncharted Lost Legacy than a Last of Us Part 1 remake. Thank you so much for joining me in this conversation. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you haven't just yet, please consider subscribing for the best PlayStation news, reviews, and updates that are here on YouTube. You can also follow me on Twitter @MysticRyan. And that is it. I will see you all in my next video. You take it easy.